What up gamers, I'm SirMav and welcome to another Destiny 2 video. So this week I decided to bring up a build for my Titan that I've been messing around with for a while now that utilizes the worthy mods you acquire from RASPUTIN and the artifact mods. Which honestly is a shame because the best mod for these Season of the Worthy builds comes from a mod that is on the artifact known as Tyrant Surge, which is only available for this season. Now that's not to say that the build can't be done without the artifact mod in the case that it is no longer the Season of the Worthy and you're watching this at a later time, but this mod just allows you to proc Warmind cells more efficiently than using a 7th SERAPH weapon. And this is best done by utilizing Tyrant Surge and the arc class of any character. In this case, we are utilizing the bottom tree arc subclass for the Titan known as the Code of the Juggernaut. So before we get into the build, I will tell you that this build is best used in a team environment. You can use it as a solo build for regular content, but if you're trying to solo a Nightfall or Nightmare hunt, it gets a bit troublesome at the end of the activity against the boss. But if you're looking for a build with great crowd control, can provide you with almost unlimited amount of overshields, and just an overall fun build to use, then you'll definitely want to try this out. So without further ado, let's get into it. First up, the bottom tree striker in my opinion is the best way to utilize this build. I tried the middle and top tree of the Titan's arc subclass, but it's just easier to maintain that survivability with the bottom tree over the other two, and much easier to refresh your Titan's melee ability. So of course, first up, you will need to utilize the arc class of the Titan simply because that's how we can proc Warminds at a frequent pace with the Tyrant Surge mod equipped. The reason I also use the bottom tree is because with the exotic we'll be utilizing within this build, you'll be able to proc Frontal Assault, Reversal, and Knockout consistently throughout any activity. And just because I'm not going to make assumptions here, if you didn't already know, Frontal Assault allows for a melee strike to reload your weapon equipped and also increase both weapon stability and weapon damage for 11 seconds. Reversal allows for melee kills to trigger health regeneration, and Knockout states that when you critically wound an enemy or break their shield, you increase your melee range and overall damage. And this will only last 5 seconds, but you can continuously proc it if you continue damaging the same enemy. So already this build is allowing you to gain additional damage to both your melee and weapon damage, but you're also maintaining your survivability when utilizing your melee ability. And with these abilities, you gain an additional 37% additional damage to your melee with Knockout, and a 17% buff to your weapon damage when Frontal Assault is active. Weapons wise with this build, you can really choose anything you'd like, but in my case I utilize the Mountaintop, Recluse, or the new 7th SERAPH VY7 submachine gun, and the Xenophage as my power exotic. If I'm running content with unstoppable champions, I'll usually switch out to the Leviathan's Breath exotic to quickly immobilize them and take them down. In any case though, this build works best when utilizing a primary and a special over 2 primaries. A shotgun with 1-2 punch works well too because this is essentially a melee build and will help you take down champions with ease in any in-game content. Plus with 1-2 punch and knockout procced at the same time, you can add an additional 86% increase to your melee damage. But the real reason for the special weapon, in my case the Mountaintop, it allows you to easily destroy a Warmind cell in those times where you need to quickly clear out enemies near you. And of course land killer blows when you have those weapon damage buffs procced. And just in the case you might be wondering why I might utilize the VY7 over the Recluse is in the case of in-game content. The 7th SERAPH VY7 submachine gun has more range than the Recluse as well as more impact, which is essential against barrier champions for the Season of the Worthy given that the VY7 can take down that shield at a much faster pace than the Recluse. In either case though, they are both great options, especially the VY7 if you have one of the god rolls. So what do you need as far as armor goes to create this build? First off, the exotic I utilized was the INSURMOUNTABLE SKULLFORT helmet, which is essential in keeping our melee ability active on our Titan. And I'm sure most of you know what this exotic does, but just in case, the exotic perk states that kills with arc melee abilities trigger health regeneration and restore melee energy. So essentially every time you kill an enemy, you keep your melee ability active for another target immediately thereafter. This also helps in the case that you punch the tankier enemy and lost your melee ability. All you need to do afterwards is kill another enemy with your melee, and this helmet will provide you with enough melee energy to fully refresh this ability, giving you basically an infinite amount of arc melees, which is needed for the Tyrant Surge mod, which states that dealing damage with arc melee, super, or grenade abilities spawn a Warmind cell. For the rest of the armor pieces, you can sort it out any way you want, but you will need 2 pieces of Void Affinity and 1 piece of Arc Affinity. For the Void Affinity pieces, you'll need to equip these 2 worthy armor mods: Power of Rasputin and Cellular Suppression. For the Arc Affinity piece, you'll need one of the most important mods to this build, the Sheltering Energy armor mod. Sheltering Energy is important because this is where you get that consistent overshield from in this build. By simply running over a Warmind cell and consuming it, you'll start to see an overshield generate over your health bar, very similar to how a Warlock Rift overshield builds up while standing in it. The only downside to this mod though is that if you take any damage after picking up the Warmind cell, it will halt the overshield regen, basically making the consumption useless. So it's best to take care of the enemies around you first to ensure that you can proc a full overshield. And that's where the next two worthy mods take into effect. The Power of Rasputin mod provides your weapons with an additional 9% extra damage to the enemies within the Warmind cell's radius. And it's easy to tell which enemies are affected because they will start to glow while within the radius of that Warmind cell. The next mod, Cellular Suppression, suppresses enemies within the same radius when the Warmind cell is shot by you. And this is the same suppression you would see from a suppressor grenade or when hitting an enemy with a tractor cannon exotic, allowing you to be the only one firing back on the enemy. This suppression will last for 12 seconds, and given that you will also be doing less damage to the Warmind cell, you can proc this suppression ability multiple times before the cell is destroyed. This gives you time to take down each enemy within its radius, or even just buy time for you to collect the cell for that overshield. But it is important to note that suppression doesn't work on bosses and champions within Destiny 2, which leads me into going back to why you carry a special weapon. In the case that you get into a sticky situation, since you do less damage to Warmind cells due to the Cellular Suppression mod, your special will instantly destroy a Warmind cell, clearing out the enemies around it. This will also allow you to stagger boss enemies and take out low health enemies within that wide blast radius. And that's really all you need to create this build for your Titan in Destiny 2. Now, like all Warmind builds, it has its pros and cons. Pros are that your Titan will be a crowd control master when utilizing all these mods together, and you'll have more freedom to tank enemies while getting up close and personal with them. Plus, the overshield also works with your super on this build as well, meaning you basically have an Eternal Warrior perk active after picking a Warmind cell up, giving you an infinite overshield during your super. But the cons to any Warmind build is that the perks you have equipped don't apply to your team, meaning that they can easily destroy Warmind cells that you proc, which is really not that big of a deal unless you were looking to reproc your overshield for another 20 seconds. In any case, this is still an excellent build for a Titan if you want to get up in an enemy's face and maintain survivability while doing it. So definitely don't be afraid to mess around with the worthy mods from this season, as they're a lot of fun to use and allow us to implement some interesting builds when combined together. But that's it for today, gamers. Hope you and the fam are staying safe out there while in quarantine, and as usual, if you enjoyed the content, drop this video a like and tap fire subscribe for more on Destiny 2. But until next time, gamers, this is Sir Mav, signing off.